Hey gang, we're talking about Florida, and anything outlandish or ridiculous always happens in Florida. So it's the same case with this. An education bill was just passed for African American history, basically stating there were actually some benefits to being a slave because you developed skills that helped you when you were not a slave anymore. If you also have your jaw dropped and just all around what the fuck energy, that's valid, because what the fuck? No. There's no benefits to slavery whatsoever for the people that are enslaved. The only people that benefited from slavery were the slave owners. Implying that it benefited slaves at all is inherently ahistorical and just racist. And also downplaying the severity of slavery and, you know, the long-lasting effect that it has on, you know, society now. We're not going to be focusing so much on the bill. We're going to be focusing so much on people denying the bill and saying that it's not racist, even though it clearly is. And there's not much I can say more about the bill, so we're just going to make fun of someone who defends it. And my favorite person to make fun of is Matt Walsh. You guys heard him so many times on my channel. I bring him up so many times because he's a fucking little bitch. Now you're actually gonna see his rat-like face. He also participated in the narrative that, you know, trans people are groomers because they're teaching that, you know, trans people exist. But that's really crazy to say from a guy who's a pedophile. He said girls, mind you, girls are most fertile at 16. And he's like, it's just a fact. It's just a fact. You can't come at me. It's just a fact. There's like no reason to say that.
Ever since the beginning of time, teenage girls have been getting pregnant. It used to be more common. The peak, ever since they started keeping records of these things, which they only started doing recently, like in the 20th century. But ever since they started keeping records, in 1957 was the peak for teenage pregnancy. 1957. Not 2009,
well, back
not
then,
today.
All of them were supposed to have kids. Like, that's when you had kids.
That's my point, okay? So to all of a sudden act like this phenomenon of girls getting pregnant at a young age that we consider young, 16 or 17, to act like it's a new thing is ridiculous. It's always been that way. Even biologically, and this is me just stating, I'm going to start by just stating facts. So fact number one, it's not a new phenomenon. Fact number two, in fact, it's a phenomenon that was more common earlier in history, and for
less civilized
6 to 10,000 years of human existence, it was a normal thing. Fact three, girls between the ages of like 17 and 24 is when they're technically most fertile.
Yeah.
Okay? That's biological. That's a fact, all right? I'm just stating facts. That's all I'm doing. But what happened recently, and this is the fourth fact, recently in the last 30 years or so, we decided that that's way too young to start a family.
Why?
He also said teenage pregnancy wasn't a problem back then. The real problem was if you're not married to them.
That the problem is not per se teenage pregnancy, it's unwed pregnancy. That's the problem in society. It's only problematic when you are not married and you don't have the man there to help you take care of the kids because he's a coward.
So that when we really need it, when there is actual non-consensual sex happening, we don't have any meaningful way to describe it because the word consent has become is increasingly means nothing because we've expanded it so much and we've turned it into this complicated equation where nobody really knows when consent is happening because we've turned consent into this super confusing calculus.
That's cool. But yeah, protect the kids, right? That aside, let's see him defend racism for a bit. That would be fun, right? Please subscribe.
So we're now on the 5th or 6th day, whatever it is, of fake media-driven controversy over Florida's history curriculum on the subject of slavery, which the media and Democrats claim promotes and defends slavery itself. That's what the curriculum does, according to them. This is all totally made up and ridiculous, of course, and I explained why in detail a few days ago. You can go and watch that segment if you want. Just to summarize in a sentence or two, the curriculum teaches in great depth about slavery. Slavery is mentioned like 150 or 200 times in the curriculum itself. One of those mentions, just one sentence in the curriculum notes that slaves, after being freed, sometimes utilize skills that they learned while enslaved. The point of including that note in the curriculum is because, for one thing, it's true.
Wow.
I love how he defends this by just saying, but it's right. No, it's not! Just because you think you're right doesn't mean you're not racist. You know, people in the KKK thought they weren't racist, right? There are people in the KKK that said, I'm not racist. So I don't really know if that's a really good point that you can make right now against this. Another thing, he said it was just one sentence. It doesn't matter. Why does it matter if it's one sentence? It was just a little bit of racism, guys. Just a little bit of downplaying of slavery. It's just a tad. Why are you so mad about it?
And we want to teach kids things that are true. And for another, obviously, it was meant to be a tribute, a credit to the slaves themselves. Obviously, that's the intention.
Is this nigga serious?
That is so not true. It's a tribute to the slaves themselves. What? How? The intention is to downplay slavery. The bill was approved by Ron DeSantis and made by Manny Diaz. Both people who think Disney is woke or some shit.
So just to illustrate the point, I want to read you a quick passage from the Wikipedia entry for a prominent tailor and clothing designer named Martin Greenfield. Okay, and he was never an African slave, but you'll understand why I'm reading in a second. During his time in Auschwitz, Greenfield learned the power behind clothing. After being beaten for accidentally ripping a Nazi shirt, he stole it, repaired it, and wore it underneath his uniform all throughout his time in the camp. Wearing the shirt made him realize that clothes possess power. This became an inspiration to Martin, helped him survive the Holocaust. This experience was a contributing factor to how he became one of the most successful and famous men's tailors of America. Now, would anyone read that anecdote and imagine that it's somehow a defense of the Holocaust?
No, Matt, because you just compared things that are completely fucking different, Matt. That's not the same at all. Saying a guy that was in the Holocaust wore like Nazi clothing so he can, you know, survive the Holocaust is very different from saying slavery was beneficial to the slaves in some sort of way because they developed skills. Not the same, Matt.
Okay, would anyone imagine that the argument being presented here is that it's good that he was in a concentration camp? No, obviously it's supposed to be a credit to Greenfield that his success can be traced back to a moment of such great trial and tribulation. If somebody wrote a biography of this guy and mentioned this fact, not only mentioned it, but probably made it like a central part of his life story, nobody in the world would interpret that as some sort of attempt to minimize the Holocaust.
Yeah, Matt. I know that. You know why? Because the things that you compared aren't the same. That's like saying, yeah, this apple is very similar to this basketball. No, it's not, Matt.
And yet when it comes to telling the exact same kind of story about some slaves, suddenly it's racist? As if everyone can't immediately understand the point. The whole reason this was mentioned in the curriculum was that it was supposed to be a way of paying tribute to slaves who were able to convert tragedy into triumph. Usually, we respect that kind of thing.
No, you don't, because Matt Walsh is against Juneteenth. He does not respect that type of thing. He's just lying to make him seem better in that moment when he doesn't believe that.
That's obviously the point. And if you don't understand that, then you're either incredibly stupid or pretending to be stupid, or else you've been duped by the leftist media, which makes you pretty dumb.
Name one leftist news source. I'll wait. I'll be here all day. What? The New York Times? That's not a leftist news source. The Young Turks, which is, again, progressive, sure. Leftist, I don't really know about that. Anna Kasparian's kind of on a turf tirade right now. And Chang Uyghur is definitely not a leftist.
As well. So no matter what, it's like you're stupid or you're pretending to be stupid. Those are really the only options. Speaking of stupid, here's Spike Lee reacting to this whole controversy. Watch.
Now saying that there's no agenda here.
I don't think he's educated about enslavement of my ancestors.
I just want to read the text again of what Florida is now requiring from middle school students. It says instruction should include, quote, how slaves develop skills which in some instances could be applied for their own personal benefit.
How can it be for your personal benefit when you're treated as an enslaved person? It's not like, oh, I'm a blacksmith. Okay, I'm going to put a shingle out there. I'm going to be a blacksmith. You were owned.
One of the arguments being made by...
That was not a natural cut. He cut something out. I don't really care to look for it because he already got owned by saying there is no personal benefits to being a slave, because you're a slave. Yeah, no, that's the only argument you need and should need to debunk anything this fucking idiot says.
Supporters of Governor DeSantis is that that schools were teaching kids to hate America by teaching, the history of slavery in this country, the history.
You learn to love America by learning the truth, the good, indifferent, and bad. That's what America is.
This is the level. I mean, this is it. Everything you just watched there, that's the level of discourse on the left. That's what you get from cable news now.
This is what I want to do to Matt Walsh. This is what I want to do to Matt Walsh. But to groin, man. Yeah, that guy isn't a leftist. The take that he has isn't even a good one. He's like, the reason you love America. I don't love America. He's like giving off liberal vibes. But either way, that's not even like a leftist. He's just like, this is what the left is. And also, he still didn't say anything bad. But let's watch Matt Walsh focus on the part that doesn't matter at all.
Oh, that's it right there. I mean, everything you heard. It's just a combination of straw men, red herrings, total nonsense. I mean, I don't even know where to start.
Buzzwords. You just said buzzwords. It's a combination of straw men, red herrings, logical fallacies. Like, you're just thinking of words to say. You're just thinking of debate words that Destiny says on his live stream that you love a lot.
Spike Lee doesn't even know what a blacksmith does to begin with, first of all. Okay, blacksmiths, they don't do...
Hey, that's irrelevant. I don't care. He's just focusing on something that doesn't matter, so he doesn't have to address the things that do matter. I'm a conservative. I'm gonna dip, dodge, and dive. Like, motherfucker, I'm gonna put you on fire. You gotta stop, drop, and roll.
So he does. I don't think he quite understands that. And no one is saying that the slaves benefited from these skills while they were enslaved.
Hey, editing me. You want to rewind the video to the beginning to hear what he said? You want to do that? And then cut back to this in like a funny little gag? You should do that.
One of those mentions, just one sentence in the curriculum notes that slaves, after being freed, sometimes utilize skills that they learned while enslaved.
Really, nigga?
Matt, they did say that, actually. So, congratulations, you're wrong. It only took you 4 minutes and 14 seconds to contradict yourself. Woo, good job. That's a new record for you. I know you usually don't get that far. Definitely what his wife tells him in bed. I don't even think he sleeps on a bed. He reminds me of like Fred Flintstone. He probably sleeps just on a pile of rocks.
That's not the point, Spike. And then everything Anderson Cooper said at the end is a total lie. Well, the critics of this, the people defending the curriculum say that if we teach about slavery, kids will hate America. No one's saying that. No one is saying don't teach about slavery.
No, they are, though, because you know how I know that? Ron DeSantis, the guy who passed the bill in the first place, said that. Matt, I love lying as a job. I'm paid by millionaires. Now, let me sell you stuff. Here's 2 sponsors that you've never heard of before, like American Kibble. It's anti-woke dog food, so your freaking Pomeranian doesn't turn into a blue-haired liberal. It starts screaming. Give me money.
No one has ever said that. It's part of American history. I'm a big fan of teaching American history. Teach the whole thing. It shouldn't be the sole focus. And if you're going to teach about slavery, teach the whole story of it.
Now, what does he mean by saying that? Now, I'm going to translate this for people that don't understand what he's saying. But when he's saying the whole thing and the whole story of it, he's specifically not separating chattel slavery and indentured servitude, which is another form of slavery. They're 2 different things, but Matt thinks that they're the same or thinks that there's no difference. So what he's going to continue to say is, yeah, no, teach slavery. Like, it shouldn't be the sole focus, like he said. And when he's talking about the sole focus, he's talking specifically about chattel slavery. He's saying you should teach other slavery instead. We should take our eyes off of that slavery and talk about indentured servitude. But he doesn't say the titles and terms for any of them. He just groups it as one big thing, and it's just slavery. When there's still different things, still bad, but chattel slavery is objectively worse. Like, it strips you from your home, families, and you are seen as subhuman and sold like you are an object. That is not the same as indentured servitude, which is another form of slavery. But what Matt is going on to say is saying, well, don't focus on the chattel slavery. Let's not talk about that much, because he doesn't want to give attention to slavery because he's a racist. Doesn't want to, educate people in any sort of way, because if anyone gets the right sort of education, well, that's less viewers and money for him. So he knows what he's doing, and it's frankly despicable.
If kids graduate high school after K through 12, 13 years of formal education, and they think that slavery was unique to America or Western civilization, which many kids do, that's a failure of the education system. You haven't taught them the whole story.
He might go on to say, what about the black on black slavery? He's literally gonna do like black on black crime, but like BC, before Christ. Again, he's saying slavery isn't unique to America. No one's saying that. Chattel slavery is unique to America, because that didn't happen in the other forms of slavery that he's talking about. Not the same thing. Also, what do you mean the whole story? What, you want to teach him the other side? Like, well, why don't we look at both sides here? Why don't we look at the slave owner's perspective? No, I don't care, actually. There's nothing that we need to look at that's going to justify anything. He wants to say that to humanize the slave owners because, again, he's racist.
It's like a basic fact of human civilization they don't know. So, yeah, absolutely teach about slavery. Teach everything about it. Teach the whole damn thing. And then teach the rest of American history, too. So no one is saying that. But you notice something. Spike Lee never had a problem with this kind of instruction, with these facts about slavery being taught until now. None of these people did. As the Daily Wire reports, quote, the College Board included a similar goal in its...
There's no way this guy just sourced himself. If you don't know, the Daily Wire is what he works for and what Ben Shapiro and Jeremy Boring, whatever the fuck his name is, made this propaganda-ass company. He's using it as a source. Motherfucker, that's you. You can't cite yourself. So, one, I already don't believe this is true, because, first of all, anything the Daily Wire says is so bullshit. Like, you can't, like, it's the most biased news source you could probably get out there, to be honest. Also, he said, well, no one knew about this until now. Look, if that's even true, and no one knew about it, that's your fault. You participated in that because you participate in culture wars, which is main purpose is to distract you from the real issues. Like, oh, let's talk about Dylan Mulvaney for the 1500th fucking time. Because while they're talking about Dylan Mulvaney and them being a TikTok and doing a TikTok and being a spokesperson for Bud Light, even though that's not what a spokesperson is, because they did one sponsor and that's not how that works. But sure, they say that to distract you from anti-trans bills being passed and anti-trans legislation being passed all over the fucking world. So if people aren't aware and they didn't care until now because they weren't aware of it, that's because of you, motherfucker. We want you.
Course framework for AP African American Studies for 2023 through 2024. The curriculum identifies as essential knowledge this, quote, in addition to agricultural work, enslaved people learned specialized trades and worked as painters, carpenters, tailors, musicians, and healers in the North and South. Once free, African Americans used these skills to provide for themselves and others.
Even if that's true and that's like, oh, it was in classes before, still insane. America's history has always been whitewashed. I wouldn't really see it as surprising if that was already in the curriculum, but it's still wrong. And I think it's wrong as a leftist, not a liberal, not the same thing, you dipshit commenters. Like, you do know, like, Christopher Columbus, not that long ago, when I first started going to school, was still taught that he was actually a good guy and he found America. And they didn't tell us that he just slaughtered a bunch of indigenous people. That wasn't that long ago. I was in school when they fucking said that shit. So America's been whitewashed. So if that's in the curriculum already, I'm not surprised. But I'm also saying that's bad and shouldn't be a thing. There's nothing beneficial to being a slave, you ingrown toenail. Like, what is wrong with you?
The College Board's AP college prep classes are available in thousands of schools across the U.S. How is that any different from what you hear in the curriculum in Florida?
It's not different, but here's the thing. They're both equally wrong. I win.
But, you know, it's one thing to have the left jumping on this bandwagon. The problem is when the right joins in the race-baiting dog pile, which the right has shown an increasing willingness to do. First, Representative Byron Donalds, who's a Republican representative, tweeted his general support for the curriculum, but said, quote, "The attempt to feature the personal benefits of slavery is wrong and needs to be adjusted." And then Tim Scott jumped in yesterday with this. Listen.
As a country founded upon freedom, greatest deprivation of freedom for slavery. There's no silver lining in freedom, in slavery. The truth is that anything you can learn, that any benefits that people suggest you had during slavery, you would have had as a free person. What slavery was really about separating families, about mutilating humans, and even raping their wives. It was just devastating. So I would hope that every person in our country, and certainly running for president, would appreciate that. And listen, people have bad days. Sometimes they regret what they say, and we should ask them again to clarify their position.
That's not even like a good take. That is definitely a right-wing grifter-ass take. He literally said, yeah, they had a bad day, so they did a little racism. You know what that means? If Matt Walsh has a problem with what he just said, what the fuck does Matt Walsh think about it? He's literally criticizing this dude for not being racist enough, for not being more right-wing.
Okay, you are being manipulated, Tim, by the left.
By the left, motherfucker! That is the most right-wing ass argument. He said, oh yeah, they might have did a little racism, but they had a bad day. What? No leftist would ever say that shit.
Into explaining why slavery is bad, as if anyone doesn't understand that.
Matt doesn't. He's saying slaves did benefit from slavery in some sort of way. No, they didn't.
And also accusing your own side of what, being pro-slavery or thinking that there are good things.
This guy defends the Confederacy. Does he know? I don't think he knows. No, he definitely knows, which makes it even more racist.
This is all from the left. And you, Tim Scott, I just read you the standards for AP college courses. Why didn't you ever say anything about that? You never cared about that. It was never a problem.
I'm sure he would have had a problem with it if he was aware of it sooner. What a dumb thing to say, Matt.
It wasn't a problem until the left and the media told you, and Kamala Harris told you that it's...
Who, Harris? He said Kamala Harris like it's Kamehameha. That's not how you pronounce it, Matt. We know you're not used to pronouncing black people's names because you don't know a lot of black people. Like, she was a cop. She's not a leftist, also. Insane to say that she's a leftist.
It's a problem, and now it's a problem for you. One thing I've heard from some people on the right who have said, it is a little like, I don't know, I don't like that language in there. Oh, you pathetic morons. Why is it a focus? We don't need to It was not the focus, you idiots. It was not the focus. It's one thing mentioned out of 190 things.
Oh, my bad. Matt, I'm sorry. It didn't reach the racism quota. It was only one sentence. If you got the 2 sentences, though, then it would have been bad. What do you mean, Matt? Why do you have a quota for racism? That's really weird and something that only racists have.
If you are saying something about a race-related issue or a gender-related issue or any issue related to any so-called protected class, if you're saying something and it's exactly the same thing as what Kamala Harris is saying, you need to stop and think very hard about that.
If you say anything that this right-wing fucking cuck, neck-bearded pedophile says, then there is something seriously wrong with you. How about that, Matt? How about I just turn around on you? Because, you know what's funny? Mine makes way more sense because yours is actually shit that you do and have said before, like, the fertile thing about 16-year-olds. But, trans people are the real groomers. You're right. But purity culture is a thing that you were a fan of and totally isn't just grooming with a fancy name.
You never go after your own side from the left. Go after them, you criticize them, never from the left. That is the unforgivable sin. If there is one sin among conservatives, it is attacking your own side from the left. You do that and you should be dead to us at that point. The moment you did do that, it's over.
Jesus Christ. Okay. A little telling. It's funny because he does participate in stochastic terrorism. So when he says shit like that, he's not really lying. He incites violence with words. It's like that's how you do that. That's how you make a mob. Not the woke mob, the Nazi mob that is the audience that Matt Walsh has.
You adopt the left's talking points to go after your own side, screw you, you're done. We don't need you.
You seem really emotional. You seem kind of triggered, man. Calm down. You're emotional, so that means that you're inherently wrong, because that's what conservatives say. So, by your own logic, you're wrong. You're wrong because you're using emotion as an argument right now. Cheer up, man. There's racist bills being passed. You can be happy about it.
Go join them if you want to play this game. If you want to play the game of pretending that there are like conservatives who need you to explain to them that slavery is bad, if you want to play that game, then just go away. Go play it with the left. Go become a Democrat. That's what you are.
Oh, he got me. He called me a Democrat. Oh, no. To Tim Scott, that's probably an insult because he's also conservative. So he's like, that's probably the most heartbreaking thing that I can hear from his dad.
I have no patience for this. It's absolutely disgraceful, and I hate it.
Oh, it's absolutely disgraceful, and I hate it. Stop being triggered, buddy. That's all I got for you guys. So like, subscribe, all that fun jazz, and thank you for coming to my little corner of the internet. And the last thing I got to say to you is, give me your money, I'm going to rob you of your pronouns. You're now non-binary.